This might be a long one, so please bear with me. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Happy Friday to all of you. And it's time for Deborah's Favorites Day. So as you can tell by the title, this is all about I Love Lucy episodes. This is my favorite show of all time. I love this show so much. Lucille Ball is amazing, hilarious. She is a TV icon. I mean, I refer to her as like present tense, but it's true. She is still to this day a TV icon. And you know, fair warning about this: I might laugh and I might cry. So just let me know. So let's get this favorites list started. So first episode is the Seance. In this episode, Lucy is on a superstitious kick, studying numerology and astrology. This hobby almost destroys Ricky's career, as Lucy tells an important talent agent named Mr. Merriweather that Ricky cannot appear in a show because of his horoscope. That problem is resolved when Mr. Merriweather reveals that he is also interested in studying like numerology and astrology. So to please him, Lucy arranges a seance that evening in their apartment featuring Madame Rhea, who is Ethel. But when both Lucy and Fred pretend to be a spirit, things get quickly confusing. So my favorite moment in that episode is when they are having the seance and Ethel attempts to contact Mr. Merriweather's loved one named Tillie. And for some reason, I don't know if this was planned or if it was an accidental thing, but instead of she calling herself Madame Rhea, she calls herself Ethel, which, you know, is like, that's her real name, but still, she goes, Ethel to Tillie, Ethel to Tillie. In like such an operator form way. So, I mean, I thought it was hilarious, but anyway. So second favorite episode is Lucy Fakes Illness. In this episode, Ethel tells Ricky that if he keeps refusing to hire Lucy as part of his nightclub acts, then Lucy will develop a complex. So inspired by this, Lucy pretends to suffer from the 3 stages of 1, amnesia, delusions of being this actress named Tallulah Bankhead, which I'm hoping I'm pronouncing her name right, and regression to childish behavior. So Ricky soon learns of the trick and quickly turns the tables by inviting a doctor to the house to examine Lucy, and this doctor is played by Hal March. So oh my god, I'm gonna lose it. My favorite moment is the doctor visit. So that whole scene when he comes in and he's like examining her and everything, taking her temperature, telling her, telling her to breathe and everything, and when he's got the stethoscope on, like, at one point or another he says that she has, oh god, okay, I'm gonna lose it. At one point, he says that she caught the gold flutes from a bushu bird. And they might have to operate and take out her Zorch. And wait and hope that she doesn't turn green. Like, I love that episode. That episode just makes me laugh. Third episode is the gossip episode. Grace Foster is running away with the milkman and her husband doesn't suspect anything. That is all. I love that line, I'm sorry. in this episode, Ricky and Fred make a bet with Lucy and Ethel to see who can go longer without gossiping. But they make it hard for them by planting a phony story that is just too juicy to not pass around. So this episode starts off with Lucy gossiping on with a friend about a friend's husband being caught cheating, and she catching him. And the scene where Lucy is acting everything out like charades to Ethel because she made a promise to Ricky not to say anything, but she's doing charades with her. So it's to me that's very hilarious because at one point or another, Fred and Ricky actually join in on this. So for me, Lucille Ball is so good at delivering her comedic lines, but she's also so good at physical comedy as well, being able to move her body and everything, and like getting her words out that way. And in the scene where she can't talk, and she's acting out everything, I thought that was actually pretty brilliant. So just so you guys know, in all honesty, it is so hard to pick a favorite episode of I Love Lucy, and it's a great show. I just can't, I'm just going, I'm literally just like listing all the ones that I remember laughing so hard with. So the fourth episode I'm going to talk about is the job switching. So in this episode, Ricky and Fred think doing housework is much easier than earning money. So Lucy and Ethel feel the opposite. So the men try to do the housework while the women attempt to earn a living. And they get a job at a candy factory. So Ricky and Fred find that they are no good at being housewives, as they cause a huge mess in the kitchen. And Lucy and Ethel find themselves fighting against a speedy conveyor belt while trying to wrap chocolate that are coming off that. That was one of the most iconic scenes. Was the conveyor belt one. Honestly, great scenes in this episode, and especially including the scene where they're boiling, where the men are boiling rice and they boil a little too much and it ends up overflowing and flooding onto the floor, and just, such a mess. Next episode is the courtroom. In this episode, the Ricardos buy the Mertzes a brand new TV set for their anniversary, and Ricky tries to hook it up, but the TV explodes. Because he should have read the fine print of don't take this back off under any circumstances, and he ends up doing it. So in retaliation, Fred runs up to the Ricardo's apartment, and he actually kicks their TV set, breaking it and everything. The whole situation ends up with both couples being in court. And the courtroom scene where they are recapping the events, Lucy recapping hers and Ethel recapping hers, that to me is one of the funniest scenes in the episode. Especially Ethel's testimony. That was hilarious. Lucy hires an English tutor is up next on the favorites list. So in this episode, Lucy wants her baby to be raised hearing nothing but perfect English. So she hires a tutor to teach her, Ricky, and the Mertzes proper English diction. The tutor turns out to be an aspiring entertainer and hopes that Ricky will give him a break. So the scene when the tutor gives them all of his music scripts, so then they can do like a little number with him to rehearse a number. That to me, that scene is hilarious. Like The song is funny. I love Fred's outfit in that scene. I wonder to this day if Desi Arnaz, because I was trying to find it, and I'm pretty sure it's out there again. I was wondering if Desi Arnaz knew about that outfit, but I don't know if he did, because that reaction he had when Fred comes walking in and like skipping and holding a lollipop and everything, that to me seems like a pretty genuine reaction, because I honestly would have been laughing hysterically too. Lucy goes to the hospital, must be mentioned. So with the baby due at any moment, Ricky and the Mertzes carefully rehearse the trip to the hospital. But when the big moment comes, things do not go so smoothly. And when they eventually get there, Lucy stays in labor for quite a while. So Ricky goes to do his new show at the club, and he is in full tribal face makeup when he is called back to the hospital, and he rushes over still in costume. Oh, this episode has that hilarious scene when they are rehearsing for the moment of Lucy coming into the living room and saying, "The time has come." And they all calmly grab everything they need. Ethel calls the doctor. Fred gets the suitcase, and Ricky is supposed to get Lucy's coat. And they are all supposed to calmly go downstairs to grab a cab and go to the hospital. Well, not knowing they had rehearsed it, Lucy just comes out and says, "Okay, Ricky, this is it." And they immediately go, "This is it, this is it." They literally all stand up and start running around like chickens with their heads cut off, completely forgetting that they were supposed to stay calm the entire time. That to me, that was a hilarious scene. I watched this episode a lot while I was pregnant with my daughter. and of course, when I was in labor getting my epidural, I was watching this scene in as well, and I laughed hard. I laughed very hard. Lucy does a TV commercial. Now, I always loved this one, and I always called this the Vitamina episode because I didn't know it was called Lucy Does a TV Commercial. So Ricky needs a girl to act in a commercial for his television debut. Lucy immediately volunteers, but Ricky denies her. So Lucy goes to the set anyway, and ends up in the sponsor's Vitamina Vegemin in a health tonic commercial. As the tonic is 23% alcohol, Lucy soon ends up completely slashed. It drives me crazy when someone says that they're an I Love Lucy fan and they mispronounce the name of this medicine. I just can't stand it. It's a pet peeve. I mean, I love how drunk she gets, and she messes up her words and she slurs them very badly. That publicity agent. So Ricky becomes depressed when he feels that his publicity is waning. So Lucy dreams up a stint which involves her posing as the Maharinsess of Franistan at Ricky's club, and she wants to help him gain publicity, and she thinks a royal going to his club will help. And it's hilarious when he finds out that it was Lucy and Ethel posing as royalty and the servant, and he teaches her a lesson by scaring her and Ethel oh so bad. That to me would have scared me. Lucy writes a novel. In this episode, Lucy reads about a housewife who makes a fortune writing a novel, so she takes a crack at it by writing her first novel. It's called Real Gone with the Wind. However, Ricky, Ethel, and Fred do not like the way Lucy has portrayed them and try to stop the book from being published, by hiding it or not hiding it, sorry, by burning it. But they quickly learned that Lucy has like 2 copies as backups, just in case. And when Lucy gets the check for her book to be published, the publisher actually comes by and says his secretary made a mistake and accidentally put her name on someone else's manuscript, and which devastates her and everything. But she ends up tearing up her book and everything. But however, he does tell her that another publisher is interested in her book, and they all end up, it's all in the trash, so they all have to go ahead and try to find it and everything, so then she can take it over to this publisher's office and submit it. So she ends up calling him to let him know, like, or asking him, is it still okay to stop by? And he says, yeah, come by anytime you like. And he asked, did Mr. Dornson, that's what his name was, did Mr. Dornson tell you how I wanted to use your novel? And Lucy basically says no, and this guy that she's on the phone with is named Mr. Eaton. And Mr. Eaton says he was gonna make it into a chapter in his book called How to Write a Novel. But as flattered as Lucy is in the beginning of finding out about this, it's actually turned out to be a chapter called Don't Let This Happen to You. Burn. Ouch. Next episode is Getting Ready. And in this one, the Ricardos prepare for their trip to California and invite the Mertzes to come along. However, problems arise when Fred ends up buying an antique car for the trip. Okay, so this episode made me laugh at a specific part. More like a specific line in general. When Fred and Ethel are invited to come along, Ricky mentions about Fred paying half the gas. And Fred doesn't agree to this because, why should they pay for it when they're being invited? And he said, he's like, I don't think it matters when you're going anyway. Wherever the front seat goes, the back seat has to follow. Ethel just goes like, oh, I guess the only way for me to get out of New York is to hope for another random trip for another medical problem, because she had something happening. And Lucy says, oh, I do feel sorry for you, Ethel, being married is such a pinch penny. And Ethel goes like, well, for once I think Fred's right. Why should you stick us with half your gasoline? And then Lucy goes, stick you? Well, now I know who holds the penny while Fred pinches it. I think that's a classic Lucy burn. Then a moment where I feel like it's the first time in a while, and feel free to correct me in the comments about this. Ricky becomes involved in Lucy's scheme in this episode. And it's basically just a scheme to get Fred his money back from the guy who he purchased the car from. Because this car ends up breaking down even before they could even go test drive it. And we don't see Ricky involved in a lot of Lucy's schemes or Lucy's ideas, except for maybe whenever it comes to getting back at the Mertzes for something, like retaliate against them or something like that. Just saying that it's nice to see that he becomes involved in a scheme of hers. No children allowed. Oh, this episode. Okay, the Ricardos' lease says no children allowed, and they're crying. New little baby, little Ricky, does not help. especially when their neighbor, Mrs. Trumbull, complains about little Ricky's crying. When Mrs. Trumbull confronts Ethel and Lucy about the no children allowed clause in the lease, Ethel makes a speech to Mrs. Trumbull by telling her Ethel's friendship with the Ricardos means more to her than all the money on earth. But then she then tells the story over and over and over and over again, and it gets on Lucy's nerves. And, you know, at one point or another, Lucy just kind of explodes and everything and basically says, you know, I'm sorry, but I could not stand to hear that story again because there's no point of actually harping on it. And, but they end up making up later. But then the boys start to fight. And then they leave, and then all four of them leave the apartment. Basically, like, Ricky and Fred leave first, and then Lucy and Ethel are like, they're fighting. Like, what about? And then they kind of like just chase after the boys to figure out what the heck is going on. And they leave little Ricky alone, and he starts to cry, and then Mrs. Trumbull comes in looking for Lucy. And then when the four, so finally the boys make up, and when the four of them realize that they have left little Ricky all alone, they rush back to the apartment to find Mrs. Trumbull holding him in the rocking chair. And she tells Lucy, she's like, Mrs. Ricardo, you should be ashamed of yourself. Because like she leaves him all by himself, and then why am I crying? Okay. And then she tells little Ricky, she's like rocking him and looking at him, and she's like, don't you worry, dear. You'll always have me around to see that nobody leaves you alone again. That moment made me cry, and I don't know why I'm crying right now. It still gets me teary-eyed. Oh my god. I know this was more than 10 episodes so far. But we're going to stop right here, though, because, you know, I have more episodes than what I'm mentioning here. And I love the Hollywood episodes. You know, I love when they go to Hollywood. I love when they go to Europe, and every episode in between. And, you know, this is a series that I just cannot pick a favorite, but those are probably like my favorite moments or something. And like, I don't, these are definitely favorite episodes that I keep like quoting with my mom and talking about it with her. But I just might just love the whole series in general. So I'd like to know, is there a show that you just can't get enough of? Like you can just watch repeatedly and never get tired of? Let me know in the comments below. I hope all of you have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, your Saturday, and your Sunday. And, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.